that your love is clear. Oh, sweet patchwork of our days, stitched together in so many ways. With every thread, our lives entwined in this quilted love, our hearts aligned. So let the...
Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm so sorry I had to cancel on y'all last week. It was an eventful 4 days. Last Friday we ended up babysitting our grand doggies. It wasn't a planned thing, but we got to spend the weekend with our kids, and that was awesome. And then the weekend went from being really fantastic to being really horrible. I got food poisoning. It was horrible. Have you ever had food poisoning? It was not fun. It's the most sick I've been in a really long time, and it took 3 or 4 days to really just work out of my system. How's everybody doing? Y'all, today we're switching into applique. We're still doing the tiny blocks, and but we're switching from foundation paper piecing to applique, and we're doing the ladybug. Hi everybody, I want to start off by just saying a huge thank you to my moderators. Thank you, Mimsy, for keeping an eye on the chat. If you like applique and you like raw edge applique, I think you're gonna love this little block. Now, we were doing the week-long quilt retreat last week, and during one of those evenings, I digitized this. I don't know that I'm gonna offer it in my shop because I digitized it full size, and you need a hoop that is bigger than 5 by 7 if you're gonna do it the full size. But isn't that super dang cute? Isn't that so cute? Hi everybody, but today you don't have to have an embroidery machine, just a sewing machine, and we're gonna be stitching this out together. Y'all, this pattern was free since the last Thursday, and since I couldn't go live, I extended it all this week, and it is free through Sunday. So jump down to the description box. There's a link that'll bring you over to my Patreon page. You do not have to be a paid member on Patreon to get this download. And guess what? I gave you the PDF, which has tracing templates in it. But I also uploaded the scan and cut and Cricut versions of the SVGs for this pattern for free. Okay, so if you have a cutting machine, you might want to grab those too. All right, so I have all my stuff already pre-cut. Let's come down to my desk right here. And so I've already cut out all of my applique pieces. And I have the background for the front of my tiny block. I have the batting and the back fabric already cut, and I have my little borders already cut. It's so great y'all are hanging out with me. Thank you so much. So that's all ready to go. Let's take a look at this pattern, okay? I'm thinking this is going to go together so quick. So here's the PDF for this pattern, right? It has all the things you can cut to get ready, like the measurement for the background, the batting, the back fabric, and just some simple supplies. I may or may not use all of this. I might use a couple things in addition to this. Like I pulled a piece of cutaway stabilizer, and that's not on the list, right? But I think I'm going to do a satin stitch today, and I really think a satin stitch works much cleaner if you have some kind of stabilizer. So isn't that adorable? This is what it would look like if you did a quilt repeating this block without these borders, right? Isn't that so dang cute? You could do different colored butterflies and change it up, or do all the same. Wouldn't that be super cute? So there's some basic instructions for raw edge applique, and then instructions for adding the borders and finishing up your little tiny block project, right? If you're doing it the way that I'm doing today. There's also an applique placement guide, and I'm going to use that here in just a second, so you get to see how I use this to place all of my applique pieces. We'll pull that off to the side. And then here are your tracing templates. Now the PDF version, these have been mirror imaged, which means you don't have to flip this over to start tracing all of your templates with your heat and bond, whatever kind of fusible you like using, right? Everything on this page has been mirror imaged, and you can trace with this side facing up. The SVGs have not been mirror imaged. Mainly I do that because I personally like cutting my applique pieces out with the fabric side facing up. So if you are using the SVGs and you place your fabric on the mat with the fabric side facing the mat, then you're going to want to mirror image all of those before you cut them out. Okay? Hi everybody. Hello, hello, hello. It's so great to see y'all. So, are y'all ready to get started? We don't have to do a whole bunch of prep work and cutting foundations out and cutting templates and pieces and all that stuff. Applique is my jam, okay? It's probably my all-time favorite thing to do as far as quilting techniques. So, and I don't know if this was on the list either, but I personally like using a silicone mat because it's grippy when placing and layering all of my applique. Y'all have seen me use this before. And I also have my smaller Caterpillar, it's the Caterpillar Mini here, and I'm just going to turn that on. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the screen too much. Oh, I pushed a button. Hold on a second. That's not good. See that camera frozen up? There we go. Hopefully my sewing machine camera is not frozen. All right, so what I'm gonna do before we even do anything is go ahead and put this underneath my silicone mat like so. See that? And I'm gonna layer all these bits right here and fuse them into one shape that we can put on the background. Okay, and this just helps me line up everything. And I'm going to start with the layer that goes on the very bottom, and that's the ladybug's body. And that goes just like that. It fits right in that space. And then the wings right on top. And this is such a simple shape, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's do that. This is such a simple shape. You probably don't have to do this, but I do it for all my stuff. You could even spread your wings out even a little bit more if you wanted to, right? So there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and get this iron warming up just a little bit. This red fabric is actually not quilting cotton. It's not flat, and I know it. You probably can't tell that from here. Sorry, there was just a bird that just flew right by my window. I'm so easily distracted today. It has a texture to it. It's actually made for like, I got it from my aunt years and years ago. I think she must have been making some kind of shirt or something with it. And, but I use it here and there whenever I need like the perfect red. And, it works fine. All of my pieces have not scan and cut, heat and bond light on the back side. All right, so I'm just gonna quickly just fuse these. No, I don't wanna do that on there. Can you tell I'm how to practice? I'm gonna move this right over here. Because I don't have my tempered glass on that. I'm so glad I caught that. There we go. I'm so distracted today. And just a simple, quick little dash of heat is just going to bond those pieces together, right? And when that cools off, I can lift that up. And now that is one piece. All right. I am so scatterbrained today. I'm a little bit worried about my sewing machine camera because I saw it glitching. Let's bring this back over here because I want to show you also there you go. Once this is cooled off, I'm just going to lift this up. See that? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my background fabric, which has some strings attached, right here and line it up in that box right there. Now it's going to be hard for you to see because I don't have my light pad turned on really bright, okay? But I can see right through there, and I can see where my antennas are, and I'm just going to draw them in. This is a friction fine line, well, it's an erasable like gel pen, right? But when you apply heat to it, the marks go away. I have to put my head in the way to see. Now, just to give you a little warning, you might see an ant or two walking around on my desk. I am being invaded by ants again. Let me turn this up. Hopefully it doesn't mess with the camera too much. There we go. I have all these lights on to counteract the windows being behind me. So it makes it a little bit harder to see through this fabric. But there we go. Now you can see that's where I'm going to stitch my antenna. Now the pattern does have the antennas that you can cut out of fabric, right? But I'm going to do a satin stitch there instead. So you could certainly cut out those little thin antennas and fuse them in place and stitch them down. But I'm just going to do a simple satin stitch there. The ants, yes, they're horrible. Oops. Let me turn that back on for a second. So what I'm going to do is just layer that like so. And then I can put my little dots for the tips of the antenna in place. And then I'm going to move this right back over to the pressing board, and we're going to fuse everything in place, okay? And I can just pick that up and scoot it right on over. I don't want to over fuse it because I've done that so many times, right? It is possible. Oops, I just erased my antennas. It is possible to overheat your heat and bond light. And then it's not sticky anymore. I'm going to have to draw on my antennas again. Isn't that so cute? All right, let me fuse those in place. Heather said, are you watching your computer like my printer? I'm watching both of them, Heather. I'm checking them both throughout the day because last year I had quite the ordeal. I would be so so mad if they invaded my printer again. I would love to have space to move my printer. I have my sublimation printer is on the wall because there's no other place to put it. So that's the one I'm mainly concerned with because that's the one they invaded last year. We're gonna let that cool off and then I'm gonna draw my antennas back on. I had never even heard of ants doing that, but sure enough, they did. But in the last couple of days, like I see an ant walk across my desk, and I've seen them in my kitchen, I've seen them in my living room, I've seen them in my hallway. Like, I think we need to just do a huge treatment for ants. They're crazy this year. Wanda, I'm so glad you got this pattern. Yeah, we're going to have to use something, Jean. I'm going to tell you that right now. Let's bring this back over. Let's cool it off. And I'm going to draw these antennas back on there. I'm just going right in the middle between those two lines, like so. But that's definitely proof that these work with the heat, how it erases the marks away. Now, I've heard so many times that this comes back if your fabric gets cold. But I've never experienced that myself. Okay, so I like to do things a little backwards, right? Here's all of my applique. And I think I want to put my borders on first, which means I'll probably erase my little antennas again. We have a crawl space, so we need to throw some granulars out or something. So, no, I don't want to do that. Let's go ahead and stitch this down. Y'all are just going to have to deal with me being scatterbrained today. I had a plan and I was going to put the borders on first and then stitch the applique, but we're going to nix that plan. We'll do that after. I'm hoping my sewing machine is okay. Yay! Okay, so I was so stressed out about that. I saw it glitching when I switched to the wrong setup. Okay, so what I have here is a piece of medium weight cutaway stabilizer. You could use a tearaway stabilizer as well. I feel like, in my opinion, this offers a little bit more support, and I'm just going to leave it in the middle of this little tiny block, right? You won't see it. But because I'm stitching a satin stitch for the antenna, I really want those stitches to be supported. So I'm going to use a cutaway. Okay. And I have some black thread in my sewing machine. I'm just going to lay this. I know it's overkill. It's excessive. My piece of cutaway, right? And that's okay. I'm going to use the extra bits off to the side to test some stitches because I'm not quite sure the width and all that stuff yet. Okay. It's possible we have termites. I think every home at some point has termites. I used to do termite inspections back in the day. I used to crawl up underneath of houses. But ants are very, very common. Okay, so let's come over here to the sewing machine and let's make a game plan. okay? I know that I want to do a satin stitch for the antenna. And here's the thing, I want to stitch those first because when I stitch the top of the head, I want that stitch to cover where I started and stopped with the antenna and the little ball tips of the antenna, right? So I want the antenna to be buried underneath of those stitches. So let's start there. I'm gonna pick a satin stitch. Let's give this a test and see what it looks like. That's a little wide. That's why I have some extra off to the side. So you could really see these stitches instead of stitching it on fabric, right? So this stitch right here, I really like that, okay? And I'm going to tell you my settings, and that doesn't necessarily mean your stitch is going to look the same. A lot has to do with the needle I'm using, the thread I'm using, and my overall machine and the fabric setup, right? But you can start here and make adjustments if you like the way that this stitch looks. 1.50 on the width and a 0.8 on the length. Okay, and that's going to give me a stitch that looks like that. And I think that would be perfect for the antenna. So we're going to go ahead and get started there. I'm going to start here and work my way around. I'm not going to backstitch either because the very start and the very stop of this stitch will be covered by other stitches. Y'all notice how I'm turning the ladybug to the left to make this little swoosh, right? So when I'm turning my work to the left and I'm doing the satin stitch, which goes from left to right, all the way through. If I'm turning my work to the left, when I stop and that needle comes down, it needs to be in the left side of that stitch, so that all the stitches look nice and uniform all the way around. if I'm rotating the ladybug to the right, and you'll see that as I'm going through on all the different parts today, if I'm turning the ladybug to the right, it needs to be in the right side of that stitch, okay? That is super bright, isn't it? So this is a good example. I'm going to be turning the ladybug to the right as I work around this side. So you'll notice my machine, it's a small stitch, right? But you'll notice my needle is in the right position as I'm stopping to turn. Then once we get down to that little tiny ball at the tip of the antenna, I'm not going to break my thread. I'm just going to go ahead and do that little circle, which I should have done on the other side as well. I should have just finished that right there. Just a tiny little dot. All right, so we did the little dot on that side. Where's my little clips? And I forgot to do it on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over there and do that one. All right, so that is a really thin satin stitch, right? I know that I probably want to increase the width just a little bit on the rest of these applique pieces because they're a little bit bigger. So let's bump that up. Let me test that out. And now you can kind of see, right, side by side. This was the thinner one, and I bumped up the width to a 2.0 and still keeping the length at a 0.8. And that is the satin stitch I'm going to use to sew down all the rest of the stuff, okay? So the head comes up underneath of the wings. So I'm going to do this right here, and then the bottom of the ladybug is tucked up under as well. And so I'm going to jump down here, and then I can sew down the wings. All right, so it's going to take me a minute. I'm going to try to go as quick as I can, but also want to keep it nice and neat. Laurel says you don't need to backstitch the satin stitch around the antenna dot. Will it be secure? If you are using a machine that does not tie a little knot if you have a thread cutter, then you will want to do a back stitch. A lot of the times you won't see me do a back stitch because I'm using a thread cutter and it ties a little knot on the back side. So yeah, if your machine doesn't do that, then definitely do a back stitch. You hardly will never see me do a back stitch when I first start, because usually as I work around, I go beyond where I start just a couple of stitches, and that locks the beginning, right? But my thread cutter ties that knot when I cut the thread. So all right, let's go ahead and get started here. And the thing about this is I'm using a black thread, so it's going to kind of blend in with all the black applique. Okay, so I know it's really hard, you can't even see that thread, but there's the top. I'm going to jump down to the bottom. And I like to start with my needle on the right side of this stitch, and I lower my needle in the background fabric right next to the applique. All right, and so my needle is right at the edge of the wing. So I don't need to, since I'm going to keep the same settings on my satin stitch, I'm not going to break the thread there. I'm just going to rotate everything and start stitching the first wing. Kathy, 2.0 is the width of my satin stitch, and a 0.8 is the length. If I were using a blanket stitch, would I still recommend the cutaway stabilizer or an applique that is going on a quilt? No, a blanket stitch does not throw down all the needle pokes and pull that thread tension on the fabric like a satin stitch does. So if you're using a blanket stitch, you do not need this, right? I'm just using this because of the satin stitch. I would even say if you're using a zigzag stitch that is wide and spread out and not close together, chances are you probably wouldn't need a stabilizer either. It's when you start squishing it together and making it tighter, that's when you start drawing in the background fabric and you start to get puckering and some messy looking stitches, right? I was going to change my thread color to red for the wings, but since you can't see anything I'm stitching on the black fabric, I thought I would just keep the black thread for the wings so that at least you'd be able to see some kind of thread today. See, now I just used the thread cutter and it tied a little tiny knot right there on the back, which usually I hate. And I've complained about it before in other videos. Like if I'm doing quilting and I hit my thread cutter, it leaves this little knotty mess on the back side of my quilt, which I have to go in and trim all that stuff up, right? But it's also convenient though when you're doing stuff like this. This is going to be in the middle of my block, right? In the middle of my quilt, so I'm not worried about it. All right, we can just pick a spot. Y'all notice I can go fast on the straight parts. Over to the right, there we go. All right, we're going to go back to where we started. All right, now we have all the little dots, right? And I think I'm just going to switch over to a zigzag stitch because it's a little bit quicker and we have 6 dots to sew down. So let's just change that. Okay, so for that, I wonder if it'll show up if I write it here. 2.0, 1.0, width and length. Can you see that? I'm going to leave that on the screen for a second and take a sip of my drink. Actually, I really like that zigzag stitch a lot right there. Oh, goodness. Hey, hey, we're live, girl. You can't do that. You can't be barking at the neighbors. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Y'all hold on a second. I have my security team with me today, and there's somebody across the street. All right, girl. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you. Good girl. Good babies. She's my security lookout. Okay, let's jump in and let's finish up these little dots, and hopefully they go by pretty quickly. Oh yeah, see, that stitch is spread out and is much faster. I'm just gonna have to clean up all these little threads as soon as we're done stitching, but see how that thread just blends right in there. So here's a good tip. If you are extremely new to sewing down stuff like this, pick a thread that just blends into whatever fabric you're using, right? Because it just kind of disappears, right? Hey, you don't have to tell me. I know they're there. Hey, it's all right. I know. Yep, they're there. She's gonna have to get kicked out. I know. I know. What I'm gonna do is put y'all on mute for a second so I can get through this. But y'all don't want to hear her barking the whole time. There's a dog across the street. I'm gonna keep it muted for just a second. Okay. Okay, we're gonna try it. There's a kid across the street now, and I think there's a difference in her bark when she's like, hey, there's a stranger, or hey, I want to talk to you. Hi. You know what I'm saying? But the loudness is still the same. The tone in the bark is slightly different, but the loudness is still the same. TJ Tech said, when you are done with all your blocks and you're ready to machine quilt, will you do a quilting design that will quilt over your applique or a custom design that does not? It depends, right? There's so many different variations you could do. And while I was stitching this, I was thinking to myself, you know, I could have saved myself a little bit of steps, because I could have created the whole thing, right? Put my borders on, which I was going to do, and then I decided not to at the last minute. I could put my borders on, finish it, turn it right side out, and sew down my borders, and then stitch down my applique. And you know what? That does two things. It stitches down the applique, and it quilts the project at the same time, right? So this, when I put together this block, it won't be quilted yet, and I would probably come in and pick like a beige or light cream colored thread, and do a little swirl in the background to quilt this block at some point. Hopefully she stops. She doesn't understand the concept, y'all, of we are live. I'm going to go ahead and start just trimming these little threads. But if I were making a quilt and I was doing all my applique like this, right? Stitching it down at this point and then assembling my quilt, I would pick an all over design. And I'm not against stitching an edge to edge pantograph over top of my applique. Let's go ahead and trim some of this away. And get some scissors that'll cut this big chunk off. I believe that the kids are on spring break this week. She is about to be uninvited from this party. Rude. All right, y'all see, I'm just doing a rough little cut. It doesn't have to be pretty. That is going to be in the middle and no one's going to see that. Okay, so Let's just clean this up a little bit. Robert, I muted because Dolly is communicating with the kid across the street. And it is super loud. It is really loud, and she has no idea. All right, so at this point, y'all, the applique is finished, right? What time is it? 2:57. Let's go ahead and sew the borders on this anyway. And hopefully Dolly will be nice and cooperate. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And just like all the other tiny blocks, first 2 normal seam. And then one of these will have my opening for this block. Okay. All right. Let's switch this foot back over. Quarter inch seam allowance. Anyway, the kids are on spring break this week. At least I think they are. We have a neighbor and his grandkids come and visit for spring break, and they're here. So that's why we think it's spring break. I've lost track since my kids got out of school. But we think it's spring break because they're visiting this week. And we just did a whole load of freeze-dried candy and fruit roll-ups for them. So. The kids across the street have like a tire swing. Out front on one of their trees. And they go out there a couple times a day and swing on that swing. And most of the time, I think she's just like, "Hi kids, I wish I could come play with you," right? Sometimes she's like, "Get off this." I can tell the difference, right? And she's probably thinking like, "Get off the swing, kid," or so, you know, it's not a happy bark sometimes, but yeah. I forgot to bring my ruler over here, so I'm just gonna eyeball it, but I want to trim up these extra little tails, okay? Carefully eyeballing it. That's not bad, is it? Carefully eyeballing it. There we go. I'm going to give this a press, and we're going to add the last 2 borders. Now, this might be the first video you've watched, and normally I'm not this scatterbrained as I am today. I'm only half as scatterbrained normally. But this might be the first video you're watching because all the paper piecing videos, you had no interest in them, right? So you might not know about the trick about leaving the opening in the border. So I'm going to show you that. Of course, it goes over it in the instructions, or you can catch that in several of the other videos. And they're all grouped together in a playlist. And that link is down in the description box. All right. Yeah, I feel totally scatterbrained today. And it's warm in here. Like, I went from having the heat on a couple days ago to now the AC. And that's weather in Virginia. Those little tiny borders always want to pop up. If you're making the little tiny blocks and you're pressing your borders, do yours pop up like that? Mine always want to pop up just like that. See? They pop up. All right, we're going to go back to the sewing machine, and we're going to add the next two borders, right? One of them I'm going to sew all the way, and one of them I'm going to do the little opening. Okay. I see you watching over there. Good job, girl. Good job. Good job. You're about to ready to get kicked out, though, girl. Good job, though. All right, that's the first side. We're going to leave the opening on this next one. Little back stitch, and we're going to jump. And a little back stitch when we get started again. I think she's settling down now. The kid must have gone in the house. All right, we're going to come straight to the pressing board. And where's my little glue stick? Because y'all know I have to use a glue stick in every single video, right? Here it is. Every single video I gotta use some kind of glue. Somebody commented on one of my videos and said you use entirely way too much glue in all of your projects. That was kind of a compliment though to me, because I do. All right, y'all, here we go. Why was I not sewing? No, we have to go back. Look at that. What is with today? Let's go back to the sewing machine and figure out why that did not sew. The good news is we only have like 2.5 inches to sew. We have bobbin thread. We have top thread. And the needle is threaded, so I don't know what happened there. That's weird. All right, we're double checking this time. Let's come back to the pressing board. Let's just go ahead and just set those seams nice and flat. And this one, we're just gonna flip it right over and press. I really like the, it kind of looks like polka dots from here, right? But there's little tiny hearts in this black fabric. I really like the black fabric as a border, and it ties into this too, right? But that acts like a little frame right there. All right, and on this one, oh no, she didn't. I added a little bit of glue right there. See what it does? It just makes it nice, so straight. And press. So there is our opening, right? So now you get an idea of what my block's gonna look like. The lighting is so much better over here. So all I have left to do is put the right sides together, right? Here's my batting. Here's my back fabric, which is the same fabric I've used for my borders, which when this is done is going to look like a little faux binding, right? Right sides together. So all the way around, no opening on that. Do y'all want to go ahead and just do that? Ooh, it's warmed up in here. Jeanette says it's 66 degrees in the part of Virginia she's in today. I think it's a little warmer than that here. And I'll tell you what, it's muggy, it's humid. I think we're going to get some weather later today. It's cloudy and overcast, and it just feels sticky and wet outside. I know it looks bright coming through that door, but it's really overcast today. I tell you what, let's go ahead and do it. Let's bring this over. I'm still using that 1/4 inch seam allowance, right? And let me just throw 2 pins in this real quick just to anchor it down. I don't want it to move. 1, 2 pins. And I'm not even gonna trim those little extra fabric pieces from those last 2 borders I added. I'll cut them off here in just a minute. So it's gonna look a little funny. Go up. was hard to tell. I worked all the way around. That went faster than I thought it would. All right, let's come here. Let's come here. Here we go. So there we are. I'm going to go ahead and take a pair of scissors and just trim off those extra fabric bits in the corner. You saw me do a little back stitch right in those corners, just reinforcing those corners right, because I like to trim pretty close to my corners like that. And now we can go ahead and just reach right in there in that opening and pull this right side out. Connie is visiting the island of Maui. Wow. Wow, I hope you have so much fun. Ever just noticed some days you just struggle doing everything? It's really not that difficult. I left a good size opening. I think this cutaway is making it a little bit more stiff. Of course it is. It's kind of the way my whole week has been. On a good note, let's finish this on a good note. I picked my Jeep up yesterday and it is all fixed. That was at the shop for what, like 4 or 5 days? We were helping my daughter move last weekend before I got sick. And I was about an hour and a half away from the house and my brakes locked up. So we had to tow. We had to go to U-Haul and rent a car hauler, go all the way back to where my Jeep was, pick up my Jeep, tow it home, an hour and a half away, and then Harlan had to go an hour and a half away to return the car hauler, and then go back and pick up the trailer because we had left the trailer there. It was a mess, y'all, but my Jeep is all good now. Where's my little pokey tool? I have a chopstick. A lot of the times I sit here and struggle, y'all, it's only because I'm being watched. Do you ever notice that? Like when you're doing something and everything is so smooth. And then as soon as you have somebody, you're like, hey, come see this. Look at this. All of a sudden, everything starts to go like haywire. Have you ever noticed that? It reminds me of the time, I guess I was about 18, 17 or 18. Me and, well, my ex-husband now, we got rollerblades, okay? And we were on vacation with my family down in the Outer Banks. And we were renting a house that was right next to like an electrical little substation. And it had a long ramp, a long wooden ramp right next to the house we were renting. And we thought it was so much fun on our rollerblades to go up the ramp and then rollerblade down the long ramp, which ended at the street, right? And then rollerblade down the street. We thought, you know, that was so much fun. And we did it for like an hour. And we were like, let's go get everybody and show them what we can do. So the whole family came out on the deck of the house and they're like, okay, we're gonna have a rollerblade show. And we go up the long ramp on our rollerblades, and he goes down first, perfectly fine. And now it's my turn, right? At the end of the ramp, before the street started, there was like a 1-foot patch of grass from where the ramp ended and the street started. And you had to jump the little patch of grass to get on the street. With the whole family out on the deck watching. I went down that ramp as fast as I could go. And I hit that patch of grass and I face planted right on the street. That might have been the last time I ever rollerbladed. All that to say that when you see me struggling to poke these corners out, just know that when I'm in by myself, like all this goes so much more smoothly. See that one corner? It doesn't want to. Oh, I need to change that, Faye. Does it say that? It does. Foundation paper pieced. How did I not take that off? I will change that as soon as we're done. All right, so there's our opening, right? And all I have left to do is to give this a press and do a straight stitch right in that border area right there. Betsy said, I love your stories. I'm going to tell you, you would have loved to have seen that rollerblading show. I think we recorded it on the video camera. Who knows where that tape is? Let's go ahead and press this. I'm sure the kids would like to watch it though, right? Because in that video, I was younger than all of them are right now. Let's finish this up with a simple straight stitch all the way around. Let's just do it. Since Dolly's behaving. Are you behaving, girl? Good job, Dolly. Oh, good job. Right there's my opening, right there. You'll never know when we're done. I feel like I could have pushed that out even more. And that too right there. So we got it totally completed today. Yeah, she's still looking out that window. Oh no, she settled back down now. There we go. So let me just show you. In this light, you might be able to see. When I did this on my embroidery machine, see all the wrinkles around that? I totally used the wrong stabilizer. And see how it is. I kind of like it. It looks quilty, right? But see how it's just wrinkly, right? Wrong stabilizer with that satin stitches. This is wrinkly because I just forced it to fit through that opening, right? But before that, it was nice and flat. The wrinkles are not from doing the satin stitch. They're from being crinkled to fit through that opening. But because of the cutaway stabilizer, everything is nice and flat right around all of my stitches. See that? But again, if you're going to use a blanket stitch or a zigzag stitch or any of the other stitches in your machine to stitch down your applique, you probably don't need that cutaway, right? But that's why I used it for the satin stitch, because it makes a huge difference. See that? Robert says my 50th birthday was in February. I turned 51 in February. Happy birthday. Mine is on the 27th. 51. I can hardly believe it. That just seems crazy to me. Like when I think of my age, well, sometimes I feel 51. Some days I feel 91. But most of the time I still feel like 31. Do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I feel like 21. Not all the time. Most of the time I act like I'm 11 though. So there's that. All right, everybody. That is the Ladybug blog. Again, it's free through Sunday. And if you're watching this after Sunday, it's in my Etsy shop. One awesome way to support my channel while you're getting these blocks for free is to give me a thumbs up, right? Or to share this video on your Facebook. Or I don't know how I don't really use Instagram that much. Can you share YouTube videos on Instagram? I don't know. But to share this video, that helps me tremendously. Okay? And if you have to come back to check what settings did she use or any of that stuff, leave a comment and say, I came back on the replay in the regular comment section. That helps my video a lot, right? There are tons of ways that that you can really help out the creators that you love watching here on YouTube without buying patterns all the time, right? And y'all, I try to give you as much as I can for free without having to go get a job outside of this room. Right? I love y'all so much. Patsy, you were 74 in February. I was born in 74. Becky says, my brain feels a lot younger, but my body says nope. Yes, Becky. I feel the same way. Thank you, Wanda, for sharing it on Facebook. I appreciate that so much. And that's a simple, real quick, you know, hit share, Facebook, you're done. I'll tell you what, though. I've been feeling much better since the weather has broke. And we've been able to go out in the garden and just move around. I will tell you, I feel so much better when I'm just moving around. I spend so much of my time sitting right here that when I get up and move around, at first, it sucks. But after I move around, I feel so much better. And it's one of the reasons she is such a blessing, because during the day, you know, I'll take her out. Where before I had her, I didn't go outside for nothing during the day. Oh, I might have taken packages to the post box, right? But we go out and we walk around, and so it's all good, right? Miss Hazel, hello. Kathy, you're so welcome. Thank you, Mary Jo. Dawn, your birthday was February 27th too. We're twinsies. She says she acts like a 20-year-old though. Most of the time I am very, I'm a huge goofball. I think I tend to get on Harlan's nerves a lot. I have a quirky sense of humor, and a lot of people, you either get me or you don't, right? And I try not to show a lot of that in my videos because I think for some people it's just annoying. But it's all fun. Delia says, I love your bunny in the background. Yeah, if y'all haven't seen that video, you might want to check it out. I posted it yesterday. That is so much fun. And let me just tell you, see that little block right there? That quilt is made up of 4 little blocks that run right down the left side of that quilt. That is the perfect mug rug size right there. If you just make that block right there, perfect mug rug size. If I had some free time, which I don't, I have so much stuff to do, but if I had some free time, I'd be making some of those as mug rugs. Kathy says, I didn't walk or exercise this winter and now I'm regretting it because not as flexible as I was last year. Yep. They say you use it or lose it. But the good news is you can always get it back, right? It's just a struggle. Right? That bunny quilt is so much fun. And let me just tell you, I was filming video for it, so it took me even longer. But I knocked out that top in half a day. Now, a lot of that time was setting up a camera and did I record this? Did I get that? You know, was extra time added to it. It's a quick sew, easy, big blocks to cut. It's a lot of fun. All right, y'all. I think I'm going to go make a loaf of bread for some BLTs for supper. Doesn't that sound good? Doesn't that sound just so delicious? I hope y'all have a fantastic weekend. Again, I'm sorry I missed you last week. Next week, we are doing either the dragonfly or let's pull it up because just off the top of my head, I don't want to say something wrong. The fishy or the dragonfly. We're either doing one of those 2 blocks right there. I'm not sure which one yet. So stay tuned, right? I hope y'all have a fantastic week. I don't know that I'll see you before next Friday unless you're following me on Facebook, and then I post all kinds of stuff, random pictures, random short videos. Some are funny. You might not think they're funny. But yeah, follow me on Facebook if you don't already, and join the creative crew. You can post your pictures over there, and I would love to see your ladybug block. Okay, y'all, I'm off. Bye, everybody.